Hey everybody, this is your old friend comicKkrakK, back with a video. I just tried to record this. Actually, I didn't try. I just full-on recorded this video using my laptop on my Wondershare editing program. There is a option to use your laptop camera and record that way. What happened though was, for some reason, I don't know if it's the editing program itself, because usually I have a bunch of lead in at the front just so I can edit it and stuff like that, now that I'm all editor and everything. But for some reason when I was trimming the front end, the audio wasn't syncing up, and I just don't have the patience to sit and fuck around with that. So I just brought out the old trusty Canon 8x optical zoom 16 megapixel bad boy, and just going this way anyway. Which is too bad, because I really liked all the stuff I said, and now I have to, I'm sure we've all been there, now you have to be all back again and say the same shit over and over again. Anyway, so the first thing was about the Oscars. Let me start this off by saying that I've never watched the Oscars in my entire life. I have no interest, I have almost no interest in celebrities and all their petty bullshit at all. I have no interest in watching a show where all those fucking knuckleheads sit around and pat each other on the back as they do a lot of chugging and handing out people's awards, and you know, I think it's a bunch of crap. I think it's a bunch of bullshit. It doesn't really mean much of anything in the long run. It's a no-brainer as far as who's gonna win what and what's gonna, you know. But anyway, I think you're with me. I think you're following what I'm saying. Special sexy lady friend does enjoy watching it. So we had a night, I went out and bought us a bunch of snacks, and we had a night where we sat and we watched it, and we ate junk food, and we had Slurpees, and hung out with Lillian, and what was great about watching it with the baby is we had to go and, you know, change her and all this kind of stuff, so we could pause it and then come back, so we were kind of like 20 minutes behind or half an hour behind, so then we could skip through the commercials and some of the bullshit. So we watched it, and on my Google account, my Google Plus account the other day, yesterday I think, I posted a link to a trailer for a documentary called The Act of Killing, and I really want to see it. It's something I'm interested in seeing. Errol Morris and Werner Herzog are kind of attached to it a little bit. I think they helped back something. I think they helped by backing some of the costs to get it made. If you haven't seen it, The Act of Killing is the name of the documentary. I'll put a link in the description and you should check it out. So the issue with it was, and let me just preface this again by saying, I know complaining about the Oscars is like complaining about a dollar price hike at Marvel and DC, or complaining about crossover events. It's a business. It's what's gonna happen. There's shit all that we can do about it, and I sure as hell know that sitting here talking about this ain't gonna change the Oscars or any of that stuff. I don't expect it to. I just wanted to put in my 2 cents. The biggest thing that I had a problem with was, we saw the documentary awards came up. I saw that one, I was like, holy shit, that's great. I can't believe that one's up for an Oscar. Even though I haven't seen it, I've heard a little bit about it, and I think there was like an interview with Herzog and Errol Morris talking about it and what it was about and how it was made, and I thought this is a really strange thing to have up for an award at the Oscars. And then comes the last nomination for whatever the hell it's called, some documentary about backup singers on fucking Rolling Stones or whatever bullshit it was. And as soon as that came up, it's like, oh, well, there you go, that one's gonna win. And lo and behold, of course it won. So the big problem to me about that kind of shit is, ultimately I don't care if you want to give awards to some nonsense. My biggest issue is that if you're going to give awards to nonsense, just have it in a category with a whole bunch of other films that are bullshit too. Don't actually try to inject some sort of substance into a category where we all know that you're going to give it to the bullshit documentary about backup singers. Now, the thing is that some of those documentaries, just being in the category is going to get them some notoriety. Understood. I totally understand that. I think that it's just really systematic of what the problem is with the whole ceremony to begin with, that you don't really want to award something of substance. Documentary movies, to me, my personal opinion, is that the documentary form has always kind of thrived and has always kind of maybe been about bringing to light something interesting, some tidbit of history, some look at somebody's life that has some relevance and some meaning, and something that's a little more in depth. I understand that there's all sorts of other documentaries out there. I enjoy some of those ones too. I'm not saying that there's no place for them. I'm saying that as the form of a documentary, I feel those are the kind of things that the documentary itself tackles best. So to put a category in the Oscars about documentaries and then have something like that competing against these other ones that, again, I don't know them all, that look like they had some substance, and from what I've read about them have a little bit more substance than that, I find just insulting, and I shouldn't be surprised. And that was the thing, like when I saw it on the TV, yeah, I got pissed off about it, and then I just kind of snapped out. I was like, well, as if you're shocked by this. Like, this is nothing new. Look at the people here. Look at what's going on. And I am glad that this 12 Years a Slave, I believe that's the title. I haven't seen it yet. I'm glad that that won. I'm really glad that Gravity did well. I'm really glad that everybody got to stand up and thank God and thank their family and everything. That's great that they had a forum to do it. I just can't stomach that kind of stuff. And now that we have TV again, I'm finding that it's kind of like a thing that held my interest for a little while. Like, ooh, look at this. Hey, look at this, shiny things. But now I get irritated more by it than anything. I get irritated by what passes as entertainment, and it makes me, I don't follow, this is really going into a tangent, I don't follow news as closely. I do pay a little bit of attention. I haven't really closely followed news for many, many years. I used to a lot and read all sorts of different things and had a whole bunch of friends who were really kind of political minded and stuff like that, and we'd all sit around and get high and wax all philosophical like about how we're going to change the world and what's wrong with the world and everything. It gets so tiring, and it ends up aggravating me. Especially the one thing that I do like watching now that we have cable is I love watching The Daily Show. I think Jon Stewart is really funny. I think the writers on there are very smart. I like the way that they piece things together. But sometimes even now you see like the complete intolerance of some of the people who are supposedly the impartial narrators on what's going on in the world, and it physically makes me sick. It angers me so much that I want to see these people harmed, you know what I mean? And that's not a healthy way to be. That's not the way that I want to be. So I choose not to do it, and I choose to just live a certain way and hopefully guide my now children in a way to kind of treat people with respect. And I just can't listen to some of it because it just drives me crazy that we're the dominant species on this planet sometimes. Anyway, end of that rant. Oh, geez, see that? Rubbing my eyes. You know what that means? Stress, motherfucker, stress. So anyway, I will say one thing though. My Strange Addiction. Oh my God, that show is like a train wreck. I love that. That's a half hour of trash that I don't mind seeing. I'm in Love with My Car was one of them, and it's a guy who named his car and has sex with his car. Yes, you heard me. Has sexual relations with his car, goes on dates with his cars. I'm addicted to eating makeup. I'm addicted to sniffing dirty baby diapers and then like chewing on them. I'm addicted to looking like a doll. It's mind-blowing. It's like a John Waters movie on television with all these people with these weird fetishes. And I'm addicted to pony play. This woman who dresses up as a pony, puts bridles in her mouth and all that. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's so great. at the end they always have like a wrap up of like, so and so has decided that eating makeup isn't healthy and she's trying to cut down. The pony play one was so and so is still into pony play. Last week she attended a unicorn convention, which makes perfect sense. So that show is brilliant. I will say that for television. So that was the rant about that. The other thing I wanted to talk about, again, kind of television related, was this other show called Inc. Alter Egos Exposed, which I've talked about before. A show that IFC Canada, I believe, and I assume that it's Toronto. I assume it's Toronto or Vancouver, because that's where everything gets done here. The singer of the Headstones is the host, and his name escapes me right now. But it's a show about comic books. I think it's a great show. The one that was just on this weekend was titled Social Relevance. I looked for them on YouTube, and you can actually find most of the episodes. I couldn't find that specific one, even when I typed in Inc. Alter Egos Exposed Social Relevance, the name of the episode, nothing came up. I think just a clip from the episode came up. I'd recommend checking it out. I don't know how easy that kind of stuff is to see in the States, but like I said, most of them are on YouTube, so you can watch them there if you're interested. I'll put links to, I think there was one channel I think that had most of the searches. Most of the videos that I searched for came up on one specific channel. I'll put the link to that channel down below. So the social relevance issue I thought was really interesting, and I wanted to talk about it a bit because I'd love to kind of make this a bit of a topic for hopefully people to chime in on, because I am actually interested to see what people have to say about it. And again, it sort of ties in with this whole Oscars thing. The show is great. The way that they put the whole thing together, the groups of people across a broad spectrum that they talk to is impressive. They focus on kind of Marvel and DC, but then they talk to people from, like, you know, Fantagraphics and things like that, and Drawn and Quarterly, and then they go, in this last episode, they went even further back to some underground stuff, which I'll talk about in a minute. They touched on the Green Lantern, Green Arrow, Speedy addicted to heroin, all that sort of drug storyline. They touched on Batman, I think it's Death of the Innocents, is that what it's called, where it's about the landmines. They talked about a Spider-Man issue number 93, I think. Let me just check my notes. My mind doesn't work that way. I see some people's videos and they can kind of recite exactly what issue a certain thing took place. I admire that, because I just do not have that kind of memory. The issue was number 96. It appeared apparently without the Comics Code stamp on it, which is something else I wanted to touch on too. But just to kind of give the overview, so they talk about how socially relevant issues have come into comics, and do they have a place, and how they're tackled, and all those kind of things. It's like a half-hour show, so I guess minus the commercials, that's what, like 22 minutes, 23 minutes. They talked to Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams about Green Lantern, Green Arrow. Denny O'Neil put it very nicely. At the time, he said I was late 20s, early 30s. I felt that I didn't have the capacity to come up with a unique answer to some of these issues. So I thought I'd like to just propose the questions in this series of books, in hopes that a 12 or 13-year-old at the time who's reading them could then have the ability to grow up with these thoughts kind of on his mind, and hopefully grow up to become somebody who can affect change, and who can maybe push things in a direction to kind of solve some of these issues. It cut to Darwin Cook, and Darwin Cook said that when he read those, he said it blew my mind. He said, now let me just say that I read them now and I think it's really heavy-handed, and I think it's a little sloppy, I think is what he said. I can't remember his exact words, but my man Darwin Cook didn't mince any words about it. But he said, as a 12 or 13-year-old reading this, blew my mind. And I first of all, I love that idea. I love that idea that whether or not it's perspective, whether or not he's just saying something now because he feels he wants to represent himself a certain way, forget all that stuff. Let's forget about, that's a whole other conversation we can have in another set of videos. The fact that he was writing for an age group, I think is very cool. And I wonder how that kind of happens now. I know that some of the stuff I read with Mr. Tom, I can sort of see what kind of influence it has on him. But there's not a lot. I mean, I guess any sort of storytelling for children, especially like fairy tales, and I guess comics, they can always be seen as like, you know, a kind of atheist version of a Bible or something, because there is kind of morality tales, and yeah, it totally is heavy-handed sometimes, but they really do at the end of the day kind of have, not only do they touch on our own issues of wanting to do right in the world and feel that we have a voice and feel that we can affect change, but they also do kind of outline good and bad behaviors as like, these are the bad guys, these are the good guys. Some of them have them black and white. Most really good ones have a little bit of shades of gray in there, because I feel that, you know, especially kids in that maybe age group of 12, 13, I wonder about Mr. Tom. He's still 8. I don't know if he has that shades of gray thing down yet, but I think it helps a lot in kind of formulating some of their ideas and having them think about things. I wonder how much of that exists today in comic books, or if it's too kind of hung up on, we're trying to relive this retro past, and we realize that our audience is like 30 to 40-year-old men who were fans, or most of our audience, sorry, not all the audience, most of our audience, I don't know the demographics. I'm assuming that's kind of the age group now that's maybe buying more. I don't know for sure. And maybe some of these people are writing for those people because they're those people themselves, as far as like their golden age in their mind of when comic books, and they're trying to relive like with style and things like that. I wonder about that kind of stuff, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. The other thing that I thought was interesting, then they talked to the Hernandez brothers, Love and Rockets, Jaime Hernandez and Gilbert Hernandez. And Jaime basically said that, I thought his opinion was very interesting. He said that at the end of the day, you read these comics with these socially relevant issues, you close the comic book, that socially relevant issue has been lost on you because it exists in a world where people like Batman and Superman and the Green Lantern and Fantastic Four and whoever else and Spider-Man, where these people exist. His thought was that it may be, my interpretation of his thoughts in the segment that they showed was that maybe he thinks that that kind of creates another barrier between you and the actual issue, which in his mind isn't a good thing. And I thought that was very cool. I disagree with him a little bit. I feel that the fact that you have this audience that's coming back to you time and time again, you have distribution, you have all these people's attention who are waiting month after month, week after week, whatever, for a storyline to unfold. You're in a unique you're in a unique situation to talk to the youth and kind of bring across some of these ideas that they might not be exposed to, because I mean, kids aren't watching the news. Kids aren't kind of aware of, they're just becoming more aware of the world, so I don't see an issue with presenting some of these ideas with their superheroes tackling them. I do like what he said about it though, because his position was that, so what did he do? He decided to create some comic books, and in those comic books he decided to talk about real life and have people from his life and tackle real life issues in his books. So he didn't just kind of bitch about it and then not do anything about it. He actually kind of said, no, I think this is a better way, and did it that way, which I think is very cool as well. So I'm curious everybody's thoughts on that. Do socially relevant issues have a place in comics nowadays? Do you think that there are socially relevant things happening in comics now? If so, what do you think they are? Again, this is all just questions I'm putting on. I'm not saying I have answers to any of this. I just thought it was an interesting topic, and I'm curious to hear what people think about it. I don't quite know where I sit on the whole thing, because I do agree with what Cook was saying, that comics can be really heavy-handed, and that's something that I find turns me off sometimes as a reader, as a movie watcher especially. I really just get angry at movies that just come across so heavy-handed and feel that they have to explain everything and really lead you by the hand. But in comics I can let it go a little more because I'm aware that the form is at the end of the day, mainstream comics are for kids. Let's just be honest about that. That's just the way that it is. There's nothing wrong with adults liking comics. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that the form is based on entertainment for children. It can be beyond that. The mainstream comics are based on that. I would love to see what anybody has to think about all those topics. I'd prefer to see video responses. I don't think that there's enough room in comments box to have kind of broader ideas come across. I'm not on Twitter or I'm not on Google Plus a lot, and that's only because I don't like being tied to my phone or technology and things like that. I'm just not that person. And again, I'd rather see videos about it. I think it's better to kind of articulate points like this. So yeah, I mean, feel free to converse about that. The other thing I wanted to tack on about that Inc. Alter Egos episode was this Spider-Man issue. Something that I wasn't aware of. He was approached, Stan Lee says that he was approached by some branch of the government to, hey Stan, you've got the ear of all these people with Marvel Comics. We think that's a great thing. We would love it if you would do a issue on drugs, on drug use. Stan says sure, writes this thing on drug use in a Spider-Man comic, 96 I think I said it was. Kid is high, jumps off a roof. I haven't read the issue, I'm just kind of getting from what they encapsulated on the show. Spider-Man was unable to save him, presents that to the Comics Code Authority. They outright say, no, you can't publish this. It's about drugs. And he's like, but it's about the negative aspect of drugs. I'm not telling kids to go out and do drugs. They flat out just said no. He went to his higher-ups. They gave him the green light. You know what, let's just publish this one without the Comics Code stamp on it then. Let's just publish it without their involvement. And at that time, I wasn't aware that you could do that. So my question about that is to people like Nick and these other people who know a little bit more about these kind of topics than I do. Was that something, like, if that was the case, why didn't people just say fuck the Comics Code early on then? Because I honestly wasn't aware that, especially like Marvel and DC, that they could just publish a comic without the approval of the Comics Code. All that would mean was that stamp would come off. If that's all that it was, why the hell was anybody listening to the Comics Code anyway then? Why even go down that path at that time? I realize things have kind of changed now, but I'm talking more specifically around that time of that Spider-Man issue. It just surprised me that they could do that. I want to kind of hunt down the issue and just see it with my own eyes, and maybe if it's cheap enough, buy the issue as well too, just to kind of have a read of it. So I'd love to hear something about that too, from anybody who knows. I think there was one more thing from that episode, but I can't quite remember. Oh, the last thing was, then they talked about the slow death funnies, the eco horrors. I did a video where we looked inside one of the slow death comics that I have. I found those, I think I said that already, I found those on the Kobo as well too. Unfortunately the files aren't working on this, I have to check out what's wrong with them. So I couldn't find that segment on YouTube, otherwise I just would have put a link. So what I did was I just filmed my TV and I'm hoping that the audio is loud enough and all that kind of stuff. I'm hoping that it turns out okay. It's about 1.5 minutes, so I'll kind of edit it in here somewhere, and then I'll come back and we'll see if I talk about something else or what. But it's just more of an overview. It doesn't go too deep into it, but it's one of the things that I do like about the show. So here we go with the slow death funnies from Inc. Alter Egos Exposed, the social relevance episode.
This was a time of change worldwide. Everyone and everything was a battleground for social awareness, and comic books were a huge part of that scene.
In the late 60s, a group of friends of mine and I decided that it would be very wonderful to do an underground comic on ecology and aim it at a really young audience and give them kind of some direction and some sense about the outrageous things that were going on in the environment. And we called it Slow Death Funnies. We just landed on the moon in '69, and the cover was this awful monster rising from the earth, and in its hair were all these various corporate logos rising out of its hair. And it had one long, horrible, withered arm reaching out, and it was just touching the moon.
Last Gasp was really successful in choosing their arguments wisely. They decided to attack issues like environmentalism because nobody else was doing it at the time. And I think they really saw a need for somebody to speak out with these things.
In the early Slow Deaths, I had a Slow Death eco quiz. And one of the things we had researched was like how much farmland in California would be under asphalt in the next 20 years or so. And the answer was 50%. We have to remember that 1/3 of all vegetables in America are grown in this land. So you reduce that by 50%, where are your vegetables going to be coming from? Well, now we know it's called globalization. But this actually happened. I mean, I was so surprised that the predictions were true.
So there you have it. That was a look at the show Inc. Alter Egos Exposed from the social relevance episode. Look at slow death. Again, it just kind of solidifies it in my mind that it's a very interesting show. I mean, sometimes there's been some episodes that have been not as well done. I just think this particular one worked pretty well for me. I thought it was put together really nicely. And again, I really enjoy the fact that they cover mainstream and then they cover some stuff that people maybe don't know who are watching the show from the mainstream. And then also covering like underground and alternative press and stuff like that. I really like it. I wish it was a bit longer, and I really hope that it does a second season. I think that might have been it. In the previous video I did a little talk about the digital comics. Maybe I'll just kind of touch on that just a little bit. I'll try not to get as heated as I did in the other one. I don't condone downloading. I'm not telling anybody to go and download and pirate material. Let's get all that out of the way first. I am not telling you to go and pirate stuff. I am not telling you to illegally go and download movies, television, books, comics, music, all the stuff that you can easily download from the internet. I'm not telling you to do it. Don't do it. It's bad. It's wrong. Okay, so my thoughts on downloading are this. I'm not going digital. I'm enjoying this new toy. I'm finding that the benefit of it right now for me is that I'm getting to read some stuff that is either really hard to get, like the Mobius and Jodorowsky stuff that I've been reading, or the Mobius stuff from the French heavy metal, the underground stuff that I found the other day, stuff that's just downright fucking expensive, like when I'm talking, reading the first couple of Fantastic Fours. Sure, they're all in collected editions, I understand that. I'm finding it really cool to read some of that stuff like this. I like the size of the screen. I think it works really well. You can flip it sideways. I know I showed this before. I'm not going to open it up or anything, but it's pretty neat. Will I go digital as far as all other comics are concerned? I don't think so. Like, as much as I do like it, It's the same with me for anything, for movies, for music, for records, for books, for comics. Part of the thrill of all that stuff, having it in your hand, is not only having the actual item, but at the record shop I go to, Into the Music, I'm good friends with one of the guys there. I played shows with him. I know a couple of the other guys there a little bit. I love hanging out there. They have a couple of stations set up where you can listen to records and things, or CDs if you want to sample stuff out. It's great being there. One of the other music/DVD rental places, which is now one place, Movie Village, Music Trader. They used to be two separate entities. They've combined into one. I know a bunch of the guys that work there now and have worked there. And I'm good friends with a couple of them. And I love just going to visit, bringing coffees, and again, hanging out, digging through stuff. What are you guys listening to records together, that sort of thing. Talking about movies together. Same thing with comics. I know the guys at a couple of the shops in town. I love going and visiting. So that part of it is really, that's a huge enjoyment for me. It's one of the things that really bothers me about movies going the way of just being pure digital. I loved going to, especially Movie Village, but other places, like we don't have any Blockbusters here anymore. We don't have any Rogers Videos here anymore, like that rent. We still have Movie Village, but it's really small. And that's really the only good one. I'm sure there's a couple of mom and pop type ones, and we've got these red box things that are kind of vending machines outside of Safeway or inside Safeway where you can rent movies from. I just find it a cold way to deal with it. And I also find it interesting because it's the push to make everything digital. It's the push to, hey, this is the thing. They're trying to grab the digital form and run with it, and all power to them. Unfortunately, they're in a world now where we're promoted and where a lot of technology is pushed on us as consumers. Not only a lot of technology, a lot of entertainment, a lot of art, a lot of movies, a lot of music. Everybody and his dog's got a fucking band. Everybody has a Kickstarter program for something. Every publishing house is putting out stuff. Every movie company wants you to see their movie. We can't afford to see everything. We just can't. And for the most part, it's easy enough to pick and choose certain things. But it's this society, it's the world that's been created for us with like marketing and advertising and wanting us to get the new technology. So then we do get that new technology. But then when we do get that new technology and they offer us all these options to download stuff and find stuff here, we're told not to use it for this, this, and this, and this. But we still want you to buy all this shit, but don't use it against us, basically. And I think that right there is where the flaw is. You can't sell us all this shit and push all this shit on us and then expect it not to come and bite you in the ass. It's ridiculous, backwards thinking. And then go so far as try to punish people for doing it. I think it's just asinine. And one of the biggest things is that I'm sorry that you can't make a living making music. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry that you can't make a living making movies. My heart bleeds for you. Get a fucking job at the end of the day. Everybody would love to have a job where they could do what they love for the rest of their lives. A lot of us end up having jobs where we can't wait to retire, where we just have to have a job where we're bringing stuff in for our families and what have you. To expect the expectations and try to put this to make it a whole moral issue and stuff is a bit ridiculous, and I don't buy into it. I think it's a load of shit, basically. That segues into kind of the other side of it, is that I work in the film industry. There was a whole series. I don't see them as much anymore. What I see now is them trying to put a face to the film industry by having people being the spotlight put on people who I know and I work with actually, to give like a kind of everyday face to some of the people in the industry. But what used to happen was there would be this kind of commercial about pirating, and it would introduce you to these technicians and people that worked on these movies to try to make it seem like, hey, you know what, you're downloading stuff, you're taking money out of these guys' mouths. You're not. You're taking money out of corporations' mouths. So I find it despicable, and I used to find it really despicable. It surprised me that when commercials and things started in theaters, I used to boo them all the time. And I would be the only one, and I never understood it, and I still don't understand it. Like, we're so bombarded with advertising. I found it insulting, and I still find it insulting that I go to see a movie and I have to sit through some bullshit advertising for a fucking car when I just want to go and watch a movie. It infuriates me that we get bombarded with advertisements on YouTube, that we get bombarded with advertisements everywhere. Again, I understand that's the way the world is. It still pisses me off. So that whole idea of trying to put a face to it when it is like the corporations who are the ones that are really worried, it is the producers and the people who back the money who are the ones that are really worried, because we get paid as the movie's going on. As a technician in the lighting department, in the grip department, I don't get money, extra money based on how many DVDs Curse of Chucky sold. And beyond that, if it doesn't make enough money, doesn't mean that that's what specifically stops the movie from coming back to employ me again in the future. There's a whole, like any other topic, it's always tried to, everything is always tried to like just made simple, like this is the answer, it's this or this. It's way more complex than that. Downloading doesn't destroy the film industry. Downloading doesn't destroy the music industry. Downloading doesn't destroy the comic book market or the book market. It doesn't. It just doesn't. It's not that black and white. Is that a part of it? Sure, I'm sure it is. But there's also this, there's also that, there's also this, there's like 17 other things that are involved in that whole package, and they depend on the form, they depend on the project, they depend on so many other factors. It's really bullshit to try to make it seem like it's because of you and like specifically pointing the finger at somebody. And saying that the reason these things are failing is because you're not doing this, that, and the other. It's bullshit. I don't buy it. It's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. That said, though, my whole point is still the same. Me personally, I couldn't go digital. I just couldn't do it. I can't do it with movies. I can't do it with music. I can't do it with TV. I sure as hell don't want to do it with comics. You know, I just my personal taste, I don't want to do it. I enjoy it more in a tangible, right there in my hand form of like a record or a comic book or a DVD or a Blu-ray. I love the hunt, all that kind of stuff. I'd much prefer it that way. I also think that part of it kind of, because I was so, because there's a lot out there that's easily accessible digitally, I think it might cut down on the enjoyment of the product in the long run, because everything is so at your fingertips. Are you really enjoying it, or are you really giving any thought into what you're going to be watching or stuff like that? Like, I can just see it getting away from you, as far as now you have 37 movies that you want to watch, and you want to watch them all right now, and so you pick one thing, and you're not really, okay, well, I got to get to this one because there's this one next, and then I got to watch this one. I think my thoughts on it, that it kind of destroys the enjoyment of it a little bit. I mean, I might fully be wrong about that, and again, it's another topic I'd love to hear your conversations on. I'd love to hear what people have to say. I think for me personally, that's what it would be, though, because I saw that kind of happen with music when I was downloading music all those years ago. I'd have MP3 discs upon MP3 discs with like hundreds of albums. I didn't listen to all of the albums. I listened to a few. It became a little too much, as far as like, oh, well, there's all this shit I want to hear because I'm reading all these reviews and I want to hear this, and I didn't listen to them, you know. So again, maybe that's more of like a collector kind of thing. Maybe that's more of like a hoarder type of mentality or something. Maybe that doesn't occur within the average person too, who isn't kind of a collector, I guess. Maybe not. Anyway, long live the hunt, and long live the dig, and long live just rubbing shoulders with the people that work at the movie store and the record store and the comic book shop and the book shop. That's where it's at. It's fantastic. Digital's great for now because we're on this budget. It's fantastic that I get to read these books that are really, really expensive and I just can't afford. I can't justify paying for. It's fantastic that I can read them. It's fantastic that the scans show all the wrinkles in the cover and the yellow pages. I love that shit. I'm glad it's not all crisp and white. Yeah. But that's it. So there we go. There's the rant vlog. And that's a whole bunch of shit. If you're still with me, thanks very much for watching. I hope I haven't irritated you too much. And yeah, I mean, as I said, I'd love to see some videos. I'd love to see some responses. I think it's all kind of interesting topics, and hopefully we can have a bit of a conversation through videos as you all yell at your screen right now as I'm talking about all this shit and telling me that I'm wrong. Do it on camera. Let's do it. Okay. Thanks very much for watching, guys, and we'll talk to you soon. Don't download.